Hello, everyone. Today, we're diving into the fascinating and often bizarre world of Queen Elizabeth III's personal hygiene and habits. She was more than just a monarch. She was a living legend who famously declared herself the Virgin Queen. Adorned in lavish, jewel-encrusted gowns, she governed with remarkable intellect and a firm hand. History remembers her for her formidable court, the defeat of the Spanish Armada, and establishing England as a strong Protestant nation. Yet, beneath all that grandeur and power, hidden by layers of thick makeup and shimmering pearls, was a woman driven by fear, pride, and deep-seated obsessions. The Queen was intensely concerned with her public image. When it came to cleanliness, her practices were exceptionally peculiar. Back in her era, hygiene wasn't about health, it was about appearance. Queen Elizabeth transformed it into a theatrical performance. She harbored a fear that water could make her ill. Her dread of aging was so profound that she treated her body as something sacrosanct, something immune to the ravages of time or even the touch of soap. In this video, we'll reveal 5 of the strangest and most astonishing things Queen Elizabeth I did to maintain her cleanliness. And believe me, the last one is truly unbelievable. Sugar addiction. Queen Elizabeth had a powerful addiction: sugar. At that time, sugar was a luxury, scarce and expensive, imported from distant lands. Most people might never taste it in their lifetime. But for the Queen of England, it was ubiquitous. She didn't just enjoy sweets, she was consumed by them. Her royal meals featured candied violets, sugar-coated fruits, sweet almond marzipan, and syrup-drenched desserts. Consuming sugar was a clear display of high status. Elizabeth not only ate it, but also used it to flaunt England's burgeoning power and wealth. However, this sweet obsession came at a terrible price. In the 1500s, dental care was primitive. Toothbrushes were harsh, and people typically cleaned their teeth with twigs, rags, or crushed eggshells. The Queen, though, had her own unique concoction, a homemade toothpaste made of sugar and herbs. Yes, sugar, the very substance causing her teeth to rot, was what she used to try and clean them. To make matters worse, she also used gritty powders that scratched away her tooth enamel. Over time, her once royal smile transformed into something shocking. Foreign visitors quickly noticed it. By the 1590s, her teeth were black, broken, or entirely missing. Her breath was reportedly so foul it made those around her physically uncomfortable, and sometimes her words were difficult to understand due to her decaying mouth. Despite this, she adamantly refused to let doctors extract them. Elizabeth was renowned for her stubbornness and extreme fear of pain. To convince her that a tooth extraction wasn't deadly, one of her courtiers even volunteered to have a tooth pulled in front of her. Imagine that. Someone willingly enduring agony just to persuade the Queen to open her mouth. But perhaps the most bizarre aspect was what followed. Instead of ridiculing her decaying teeth, the noble women of her court emulated them. That's right. They blackened their own teeth with soot and charcoal to match the Queen's appearance. In her court, even tooth decay became a symbol of class. If the Queen had black teeth, then black teeth signified beauty, power, and wealth. The darker your smile, the richer you must be. In a world where every action of the Queen became a fashion trend, even rotting teeth became desirable. Such was the power of royalty. Bathing habits. You might have heard the notorious quote, "I bathe once a month whether I need it or not." Some claim Queen Elizabeth I actually uttered it, while others dismiss it as mere legend. Regardless, it perfectly illustrates the perception of cleanliness in the 1500s and how strangely it contrasts with today's standards. During that era, water was deemed hazardous. People believed it could transmit illness, weaken the body, and allow bad air, what they called miasma, to enter. This invisible poison was blamed for spreading deadly diseases like the plague. For many, taking a bath wasn't healthy, it was risky. Consequently, Queen Elizabeth avoided it. Instead of washing with soap and water, she had a different routine. She would change her linen undergarments, known as shifts, sometimes multiple times a day. People believed that the soft fabric drew sweat, dirt, and toxins from the skin. No water was needed, just fresh fabric. When she did refresh herself, she used rose water, vinegar, or herbal mixtures prepared by her royal apothecaries. These were gently dabbed onto her skin by handmaids. It was a slow, meticulous ritual, not for hygiene, but for appearances. Her body was treated more like a sacred object than a human one. It had to remain perfect at all costs. Why not simply take a proper bath? Because it was no minor undertaking. Her palaces lacked plumbing and running water. If she desired a bath, it involved dragging out a massive wooden tub, heating dozens of buckets of water, and summoning at least 3 servants to pour, stir, and prepare. It was akin to planning a royal ceremony. Bathing was a luxury, not a regular habit. Yet, she was considered clean. She wore hundreds of gowns made of fine silk and velvet. She smelled of flowers and spices. She kept perfumed gloves, scented handkerchiefs, and demanded her appearance be flawless from head to toe. But all of this merely created an illusion of cleanliness, not actual sanitation. There was no scrubbing, no rinsing, no soap. Elizabeth avoided bathing not because she was dirty or lazy. She avoided it because too much reality could tarnish her perfect image. Water could smudge her white makeup. It could soften the illusion. It could make her human. And in her mind, a queen was not meant to be human. Makeup practices. Queen Elizabeth's face is among the most recognizable in history: porcelain white, statue smooth, and stone cold. But that wasn't her natural skin. It was a meticulously painted mask applied daily, not for beauty, but for power. In her era, pale skin signified wealth, class, and even divine favor. The whiter your complexion, the higher your social standing. So, the queen took it to extremes. She didn't merely wear makeup, she used it to construct a myth, a perfect version of herself that could never age or weaken. Her preferred product was Venetian ceruse, a lethal blend of white lead and vinegar. It created a flawless look, concealing every blemish, scar, and shadow. But beneath, it was slowly destroying her. This poison seeped into her skin, causing rashes, open sores, and long-term scarring. As her true face gradually deteriorated, she simply added more layers of makeup, thicker and thicker, until her appearance became a frozen mask. But it didn't end there. For her lips, she used vibrant red colors derived from mercury, one of Earth's most toxic substances. The more she used it, the sicker she became. Her mood shifted, her memory faded, her body weakened, and her hands sometimes trembled. These are classic symptoms of mercury poisoning, and the queen had no idea she was poisoning herself every time she painted her face. So why did she persist? Because her face didn't solely belong to her, it belonged to England. Her image was her power. It made her appear ageless, godlike, and untouchable. She forbade painters from depicting her true features. Instead, artists had to use official facial patterns copied from younger portraits. Regardless of her age, her paintings remained the same: youthful, perfect, eternal. She even refused to be seen in natural light, relying on candles and shadows to conceal the truth. In her final years, her face became so delicate that people whispered touching it could cause the makeup to crack and crumble. She barely washed her face. Why would she? Washing it meant wiping away the illusion and revealing a fragile, aging woman beneath the mask of the Virgin Queen. Did she know the makeup was killing her? Historians still debate this, but one thing is clear: she chose the mask over her health. She was willing to destroy her body to keep the legend of Gloriana alive. To truly grasp Queen Elizabeth's hygiene, one must comprehend her deepest fear: losing control. Every inch of her body, her painted face, perfumed gloves, and carefully chosen scents, wasn't merely about looking good. It was about wielding power and concealing weakness. In her era, bathing was not just rare, it was perilous. People believed water could carry disease, and bathing meant exposing one's body both physically and symbolically. It was seen as soft, intimate, even dangerous. And Elizabeth, who had witnessed her mother, Anne Boleyn, be destroyed by the court, would not allow herself to appear fragile. To her, a naked body was a vulnerable body. So, she shunned water and constructed a new form of cleanliness, one built on perfume and ritual. Each day, she surrounded herself with potent, sweet aromas. Her maids prepared rose water, lavender oil, vinegar infusions, and herbal mixtures brewed in the palace's still rooms. These liquids weren't intended to cleanse the skin. They were meant to mask odors and create the illusion of freshness. A few drops behind the ears, a wipe on the wrists, a fragrant handkerchief tucked in her sleeve, and she would float through her court like a walking flower garden, untouched by human scent. She carried pomanders, small, ornate balls filled with herbs and resins, hidden in her dress or worn on her belt. Whenever a foul odor dared to approach, she would raise one to her nose and inhale the controlled world she had meticulously constructed. These objects weren't just for comfort, they conveyed a clear message. I am not like you. I do not stink like the rest of the world. Even her clothing was part of this elaborate performance. Her gloves were perfumed, her handkerchiefs soaked in oils, and her dresses were layered and stiff, designed to conceal her body and trap scent. She was known to bestow scented gloves upon her courtiers, a gift derived not from her person, but from her meticulously crafted image. As for her hair, it was rarely washed. Washing it was considered dangerous, especially for someone who wore so much makeup. Instead, her natural hair was stiffened with sugar water and egg whites, then powdered. As she aged and began to lose hair, likely from years of lead and mercury poisoning, she switched to wigs, especially auburn ones, to maintain her image. But beneath all that powder and perfume, her body was deteriorating. Years of toxic makeup had left her skin scarred, thin, and blistered. Rumors circulated of peeling skin, open sores, and a face too damaged to touch. Yet, she continued to apply layers of makeup, thicker and thicker. She even banned mirrors from her private chambers. No one was permitted to see the truth, not even herself. It's said she had a servant whose sole duty was to powder her shoulders in private, ensuring no one ever caught a glimpse of her real skin. Elizabeth had become a prisoner of her own illusion. Bathing wasn't merely avoided because it was difficult. It was avoided because it meant wiping away the mask. To wash the body was to admit it was aging, cracking, human. And Elizabeth had spent her entire life convincing the world she was more than human. In her final years, she carried a scented walking stick. When passing odorous courtiers, she would raise it to her nose, not just to block the scent, but to remind everyone, I am the queen. I do not belong to your world. Her body was no longer just flesh and bone. It was the symbol of the crown. It had to remain perfect, even if it meant sacrificing the truth beneath. To Elizabeth, cleanliness wasn't about being healthy. It was about staying untouchable. Waste management in the palace. From the outside, Queen Elizabeth I's palaces appeared like heaven on earth. They featured massive stone walls, golden ceilings, velvet carpets, and halls filled with music and silk. But take one step beyond the royal facade, and you'd discover something far less glamorous. There were no toilets, no sinks, no plumbing. That's right. Beneath all the beauty, the queen lived in a world that smelled like a sewer. Her most private toilet was an elaborate wooden chair called a close stool. It looked elegant on the outside, but under the cushion was merely a ceramic pot for collecting waste. This pot had to be emptied by hand, cleaned, and perfumed multiple times a day. This task wasn't performed by a common servant, it was done by someone of royal power, the groom of the stool. Don't let the job title deceive you. This man was no mere janitor. He was a trusted noble, chosen for his loyalty and discretion. He not only assisted the queen with her toilet needs, but also helped her dress, managed private affairs, and sometimes even shared secret political conversations. In the peculiar world of the Tudor court, being intimately close to the queen during her most personal moments meant being close to power. However, The rest of the palace was far more repulsive. There were no flushing toilets, just chamber pots, buckets, or bowls for waste, used by everyone. These were then dumped into cesspits, hidden beneath floors, or just outside the palace walls. The responsibility for cleaning all this waste fell to men called gong farmers, or night soil men. They worked at night, carrying buckets of human waste through dark hallways and narrow stairs, attempting not to spill as they emptied the filth into open trenches. The stench was horrendous and never truly dissipated. To mask it, the palace burned herbs like lavender, rosemary, and sweet marjoram. People sprinkled flowers on the floors and laid down straw or rushes soaked in oils to try and trap the odor. But these rushes weren't cleaned often. Dirt, hair, crumbs, and decay accumulated underneath, creating a hidden layer of filth. Even the queen couldn't escape the pervasive odor. She moved her court from palace to palace, not solely for political reasons, but to escape the smell. The longer she stayed in one location, the worse the waste problem became. No amount of perfume could conceal the truth forever. This was the true reality of royal life. A world of gold and velvet on the outside, but decay and disease festering beneath. A place where power coexisted with filth, where the most powerful woman in England lived in constant struggle with the stench of her own kingdom. Queen Elizabeth did not rule by chance. She ruled with strategy, style, and smoke and mirrors. Her hygiene was not lazy, it was intentional. Every skipped bath, every drop of rosewater, every powdered wig was part of a grand performance. In a world where a woman's strength could be shattered by a single rumor, Elizabeth transformed herself into something untouchable, ageless, and beyond human. She knew the truth. To bathe was to risk the mask. Water could wash away her power. A bare face might invite judgment. A real, aging body could destroy the illusion she had spent decades perfecting. So instead, she powdered, she perfumed, she painted, she posed, and she became a legend. Elizabeth I may not have been clean by today's standards, but she was flawless by design. In her world, soap and water were not tools of health. They were threats to power. She didn't just survive, she mastered the art of being seen without being known. In the end, her true cleanliness wasn't on her skin, it was in her image. And for a queen, image was everything.